Hi everyone, super happy to have you guys back for day 21 of the 26 Days to Greatness Challenge. And today we have you for unleashing your inner badass CEO with Alex Rudnicka, who is the founder of CEO Female Entrepreneur, who she empowers women in business on how to put themselves first so both their business and their lives can both flourish. So with that being said, Alex, I cannot wait to dive into this topic, and thank you so much for being on here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to talk about women putting themselves first, because I just think it's a very interesting topic to have. And so much well done for saying my surname correctly, because that's always kind of like a thing that comes up. So yes, thank you so much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, yeah. And before we get started, Alex, I just want to take some time to acknowledge our listeners for really following through for day 21, really committing to yourself, for tapping into your greatness. And today you are in for a treat, especially women listening right now, because like this is so common. Like I relate to this idea of like not putting myself first in building up businesses. So I cannot wait for Alex to shed some powerful insights for us today. But before we get into that, I would love for Alex to share about her background, her story, because we talked about this, Alex, before we got on this interview, and I'm just so inspired and touched by what you've been through, your experience, and I would love for you to share that with our audience today.
Thank you so much. Yes. So where do I start, right? I mean, I'm going to give you a brief story, and I always try to pick out the bits of my story that are relevant to the audience, right? And also obviously, you know, for women, I'm sure that some men will be watching this as well. Essentially, you know, now I run the company, as you know, CEO Female Entrepreneur, and I'm based in United Kingdom. However, my life started in Poland, in Eastern Europe, and I emigrated to the UK when I was 21. I couldn't speak a word of English, and I had no vision of the grand future and no vision of like working for myself and being this go-getter, etc. I was very, very shy, very timid, just scared of everything. And so I was just this kind of like young girl on the plane, just looking for a better life. I didn't know what I wanted to create. I just kind of knew what I wanted to move away from, if that makes sense. And sometimes that's enough to know what we don't want, to actually start moving towards the direction of what we do want. So just to give you a snapshot, I had a crazy story. It's kind of like a movie like, where I worked as an au pair, and my pay was about £55 a week, which is maybe $70. I mean, try to live on $70 a week. And I lived, that family kind of gave me a room in the playroom, in like a walking wardrobe, and that walking wardrobe was my bedroom. So there I am, this kind of like Cinderella. And then over the next few months, it just kind of, you know, I'm learning the language, and then people, you know, some friends from the college are saying, you know, I think you need to kind of go and build a regular life, right? Because the family wasn't treating me so well, that they were making things, I mean, being an au pair is supposed to be like a superb experience, right? Unfortunately, this one wasn't, because I wasn't allowed to eat like fruits and vegetables because it was so expensive, etc. Just like I wasn't treated in a way that a young girl should be treated, anyone really. So unfortunately, due to various events, I actually ended up being chucked on the street by this family. So I found myself with like £70 in my pocket in London, living in this dodgy hostel and sharing a room with like 5 men. And so those were my beginnings in the country, right? That's how I kind of got started. And bear in mind, I always say this, as I was going through those experiences, I was terrified, just completely terrified. But all I had was, okay, well, I can't go back. I have nowhere to go back to. So I better just keep going day after day after day. So fast forward, you know, I just built a career in hospitality, like every, you know, immigrant, really, right? Being a waitress, washing glasses for like 100 hours a week. And then I went and transitioned into banking. So slowly but surely over the years, I built, you know, a so-called good life for myself. And when I became a single parent, and by then I had a really good career in management, and I worked for one of the major banks in the country, managing teams and being very successful, I still was driven by fear. So I still was like, and here's what was interesting. I kept getting promoted at work because, again, I was already this nice girl who just, you know, keeps her head down, always on time, always putting the work, always saying yes, 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 yes to everything. And so I was just getting used and abused. And yes, I was being promoted because I was the person who was just like, yes, I do whatever you need me to do. But I completely, it was completely driven by fear, as in like, I can't say no. It is not possible to say no. What are they going to think of me? You know, etc., etc. And so it was probably about 6 years ago, once I kind of got into my 30s and my daughter started growing, that I started to ask myself a question for the first time in my life. Okay. So I got the dream, the so-called dream, the good life. I no longer work 100 hours in hospitality. Now I've got a nice house and a nice career. And so from the outside, it is looking great. But what do I want? You know, what kind of work would really make me happy? And so this is kind of how I got into coaching, because the answer that I received was, I've realized that through my management job, I enjoyed coaching and growing people the most. And what started happening was that I started having this internal conflict of, I can't give them the advice that is in line with the company advice, right? I want to tell them, go and do things for yourself. And I was like, what do I do with this, right? So again, cutting really long story short, I kind of went on this journey of quitting my job, taking a pay cut, and working with people in prison and people after trauma. And so I started kind of like learning coaching just by working for companies that, you know, I work for other people. I didn't actually work for myself. And I just coached and work with people, really learned psychology. And that kind of led me to starting my own entrepreneurial adventure into coaching. And so what I do right now kind of found me. Because I was so broke when I first started my business, and I couldn't invest as a single parent, and I didn't have any family or any kind of like background behind me to help me out, I had to build everything myself. So I had a sound business knowledge. So I kind of transitioned into business coaching and kind of like teaching other coaches how to build their businesses. But through working with my clients, a pattern started showing up where women who were brilliant at what they were doing suddenly were like, oh, I can't do this, or this isn't possible for me, or what if the market is saturated? And it was just this wave of the behaviors that I saw in myself previously that I really had to grow out of. And so slowly kind of my business very naturally just transitioned to working with women who are in business or in high level professional careers, but I no longer do any of the, you know, the strategy and marketing and that kind of stuff. I just work with the woman and her character, really helping her to unleash that badass that is in her, because those women are, you know, they know that it's like this knowing inside that you can't go and do anything else. You know, you have a bigger purpose in life. You just know it, but you somehow can't tap into this. And so my work really is about helping these women bring out their brilliance and really own it. Like, don't be ashamed of your success. Don't be ashamed of your strength and your power. So I hope that this kind of explains, you know, the background. And like, so I think what's really most important about this is that I've done, and I created the impossible shifts, you know, and I really built myself from nothing. and that just gives me a very, very broad spectrum of experience now.
Oh, that was so beautiful. Like you put it all together in such a beautiful, succinct way. And I cannot imagine all that journey. How was that like for you, and completely rebuild yourself coming from that background? And I can just imagine all kinds of stories that you started to internalize and believe for yourself, being in that situation, to now being this badass CEO that you are today, and empowering other women to do the same thing. And, I mentioned this at the beginning, like, this is so personal to me because I experienced this shift too. Like, we have this huge vision as women. We want to make a huge difference, but somehow, somewhere deep within us, we don't believe in ourselves. And we don't really know where that comes from. But until we can make that powerful shift to really like step into our badass inner CEO, that's when everything changes. So I'm really excited to learn, Alex, like, how did you make this impossible shift, first for yourself and also for the clients that you work with? What is the actual process that you guide people through?
That's a great question. And for me, it kind of became a matter of life and death, really, because I lived in such a fear of what other people thought of me, and suddenly I found myself in a position of leadership, right, where I had to manage teams, and I actually became the first person I was the only immigrant in that office that we worked in. There was about 60 people there.
Wow.
And it was the first time where, everyone else around me was British. They were born in the country, they have to learn the language. And there I was, being in a management position. And I came from the very bottom, if that makes sense. So I was employed to work at the very bottom, and within 3 months, I was actually managing the team. And so I was driven. What was driving such a great performance for me was the fear, right? Because I was scared, what I'm going to do if I lose the job, etc., etc. So at that point, the fear was working for me. Okay. And I just want to recognize that, being that person who keeps her head down and just works and works, and she's always in fear, this isn't necessarily a bad thing, because it will help you progress to a certain level, until you reach that level where this is just no longer working. Because once you're at that higher level, the game is different. You're dealing with people who know their worth. You're dealing with people who know their strengths, and they're like, I deserve to be here. So suddenly, if you're at the higher position, you're like, oh, I don't know if I deserve to be here. It's starting to really damage you, that internal fear. So the journey for me really started with understanding. The first thing that I wanted to work on was my own shyness and my confidence. And I just started devouring any books that I could find on the topic. So it was really about, so quote, fixing myself, right? And also because I had quite a bad, upbringing that we don't have to get into details right now, but just any area of life that we can think of, I had damage, in that area of life. So I just wanted so badly to become normal, just this normal person who doesn't have issues and who doesn't like second guesses herself all day, every day. That, like I said, I just completely buried myself, and I just started applying, and somewhere and this is why I always say to the women that I work with, once you start changing, you do not see the change. While you are changing, you do not see it, but you will continue taking those tiny steps. And that's what happened to me. So I was taking tiny steps. And then something happened, like a situation will happen in your life. And only after the situation happened that you were just like, oh my God, you look back and you're like, oh my God, like I responded differently. I actually changed. And then kind of like internalizes, all of that work internalizes, it comes together. I call this the point of saturation, right? When you've done something so many times that it just becomes ingrained in your intangible character. It becomes a part of you, and you can't go back to the old. You just cannot. It's not possible. And so that's that's what started the journey for me. And somewhere in between, I not only reached the so-called normal level, I just became a person who just knew how to create that change in other people, and people just started coming to me. So that's how it started for me.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And I love how you explain that, because there's really not like a clear boundary. It's like a gray zone that you
Yes.
just kind of start to do that evolution. And when you were explaining that, I was just thinking about like a progress that we see working out. Like if we show up every single day, we will not see our body transforming. But for someone who haven't met you like maybe 3 months ago, they will see the powerful difference. But when we are in the process, it's so hard to see it. And I'm so glad that you mentioned this, Alex, because sometimes I know like I'm so deep in my own transformation that sometimes I just don't see how much I am evolving. But it takes me looking back at, like, for example, the Facebook Live that I did a year ago and see the ones that I did today. Like, I'm a totally different person. And it just really takes that. And I believe that it takes someone like you, a mentor, outside of me, to be able to see like,
Yes.
oh my gosh, Miko, you're evolving, you're transforming. We need that someone to help us see from the outside. But Alex, I would love for you to touch more on what does it really look like or feel like, or to embody that inner badass CEO. What does that even mean?
Absolutely. So in order to do this, I'm just going to tell you first what it means to not have this, because that's the, it will be a clear picture really, so you can see the other side of it. So I call the beginning stage of this for women being the so-called nice girl. This is how I call this. And the reason why I call this is that, like I said, those women are already hardworking, they're already putting more on themselves, they always say yes, they are creating results, right? They're not the person who's like, oh my gosh, like I don't know what to do. They are the go-getters. It's about that quiet inner side that no one else gets to see. They just know that it's there, that they just second guess themselves. And they're scared of making a decision because maybe they will make the wrong decision. This is something what high achievers don't know that other high achievers have, right? I know this because I've worked with, when you have a broad spectrum of people, you just start seeing those patterns. And so those high achievers, even though that they could be sounding very professional and they looking sharp and everything else, this is on the inside. So you could be looking at this woman and she just looks the game. She's the shit, she's definitely the go-getter, but it's the inside of her when she's like, I'm not quite sure if I can do this. And then she could be growing her business and she doesn't know, let's just say that she's growing a team, right? And she either can't let go of doing things herself and really use the team, because she's like, well, no one can do it as well as me, or they're going to mess up, etc. She's just really keeping herself small. And another thing that's very, very visible in these women is that, they don't have to be told or do the work, take the action. They are the action takers. For them, switching off is the difficult part, right? For them, actually going on holidays and taking care of themselves and doing the self-care and sitting silently, sitting in meditation is the impossible. So that's the kind of a nice girl who really, she knows, she's got that inner knowing that she's there to pay a bigger game, but she's really kind of changing herself. She's stopping herself. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So then on the other hand, we've got the CEO, or you can, I think a lot of people will really resonate with the archetype of the queen, right? That she knows that she can have it all, but she can't do it all. And so she starts chipping away with those behaviors such as people pleasing. And people pleasing is one of the biggest ones. She learns how to say no, right? And she learns that you don't have to work yourself to the absolute bone to be proud of what you've achieved and to make it okay. She learns that receiving can actually be pleasurable. And I'm going to give you an example. And I think I shared this with you as well previously when we were speaking. I remember when my business was starting to take off and I was starting to make bigger sales. And I remember that my first biggest sale was £9,000 at the time. That was just one sale for one client, which is just above probably 10K in dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And that sale was the easiest sale I've ever had. Like, I literally did no work. I just asked a question, the person answered, and boom, the next day I had the money. And what was interesting was that my internal response was almost like, no, this is too easy. This is not okay that the money came to you so easily. You didn't work enough, etc., etc. And so this is, again, the nice girl mentality, whereas the CEO will be like, how can I make it with the most fun? How can I make, have this and a great life? Mm-hmm. So it really is embodying this woman who is so in touch with the truth and the understanding that being a woman, just the fact that you're being a woman, that you are a woman, means that you are, in fact, unstoppable creative force, because that's our nature. Right? Mm-hmm. So when we tap into the truth, which is we are a spiritual being living in this body, just that means that we are unstoppable. And so it's about creating and cultivating that belief in you, so it becomes such a rock solid core of you. It doesn't mean that everything is suddenly like that there is no challenges, because you keep growing. But what happens, what changes is that you recover much faster from that negative drop in the mindset. And we know what it's like to be an entrepreneur. Morning you're on the high, evening you are on the low, right? And it can change so fast. Yeah. Right? But but the change is that when you are in your CEO, when you are in that empowered mindset, you recover so much quicker. So you won't be stuck there for days or weeks or God forbid months. That has happened to me before. You recover much faster, and you really become unapologetic. And this isn't about being aggressive, right? You can still be in your feminine, you can still be in your delicate energy. You literally just say, well, it's going to happen because I decided so. And there is no justification that happens in that space. It's literally, whatever I'm going to do, I'm going to get support and help myself with it. And I think this is one of the biggest learning curves as well for female entrepreneurs, is that I was definitely guilty of this. In fact, I had 4 failed businesses that never made any money because I never sought support. I never found the person who made it and did it before me so I could model them and be mentored by them. I was just like, well, I'm just going to figure it out because I don't have the money, etc. And so when you are in your CEO, you literally, as you're writing your goal, you automatically are asking, what support system I'm going to get in place to create that. So this is the kind of an outline of what, there are just 2 different thinking styles. And one thing that I want to cover as well is that they respond to failure and challenges differently. So the nice girl, let's just say that something happens, right, in your business, that maybe you didn't get the sale, maybe you did a launch and it flopped, maybe something happened with your website and you don't know how to fix it. The nice girl will internalize it as she will have an emotional response, and she will translate it straight into ego. What does that say about me? Right? If a launch flop, it means that Alex will not be successful. If Alex's website has gone, something broke that she doesn't know how to fix, it means that Alex will never be successful. So they feed everything straight into the ego, which is extremely harmful. This is not the way you do the business like this, and you're going to be dead. You will not survive. Whereas the CEO looks at the facts and she's like, okay, well, the launch flopped. She will go and review the launch. Okay, did I do enough marketing? Did I have any partners to help me promote? Did people know when it was launching? Did the communications go in on time? Did I have to invest more in advertisement, etc.? She will look at the facts. It's not even going to cross her mind that it means that I am not good. So it's a separation from the business, where you are sitting with that CEO hat and you're just like, no, let me look at the facts. And she would then just, through that separation of the self and of the ego, she spares herself unnecessary suffering. I think that's the best way to describe this. So I think this is a major difference.
Oh my gosh, I totally resonate with everything that you're saying. Like, for the longest time before I make this shift into really like you said, embracing that inner badass CEO, like all the things that I did, the results that I generated, like it was all tied to my sense of self-worth and my sense of like identity. If I didn't get the results in my business, somehow I linked it back to like how much am I worth. And that, like you said, is so harmful. It takes away a lot of our energy, mental energy, emotional energy, physical energy, and it's not going to work, or it's not sustainable long term. So now here's my question for you, Alex. You know, with this whole series, my intention is really for our listeners to be able to implement not only this concept, like so that we can take action. How can we actually transform ourselves knowing what we know now with this powerful nugget? So what are some action steps that you guide your clients through that really can shift them out this being nice girl persona to being the inner badass CEO?
Absolutely. You know, just for the purpose of this training here, and for women who are watching, I just want you to get out a piece of paper and just do number one, I want you to do a journaling exercise. Journaling is just such a powerful transformational tool. It's one of the most powerful tools out there that there is for self-reflection. And I want you to, having listened to this interview, identify what nice girl traits do you have, such as people pleasing, such as working too much and doing too much yourself, always saying yes, never asking for help, or actually or rejecting help because you're too good for that, etc. Struggling with accepting the fact that things could be easy and taking things personally. Just list them. And then I want you to start practicing every day to let go of these behaviors. And again, this isn't a quick fix, right? It's a practice, which means that we do it every single day until, like I said, we reach that point of saturation, that it's become a part of our identity, a part of who we are, so we can't go back to the other person. So that will be number one. This is super easy, and you know, I've named those behaviors for you, so you can check against yourself. And number two is to understand that the unshakable core has to be built. It's not, people aren't just born with it. So your second action will be to create a space where you can go within yourself. I strongly recommend meditation practice for this, where you can go into meditative state, and then you can play some powerful affirmations. So you can just record them on your phone. So things like, I am powerful, right? I believe in myself. I trust myself. And if you can just like put the heart, or put a hand on your heart and connect with your heart space, and just feel this space. If you just close your eyes and you feel this space and feel a better emotion, right? Because you have, as you say, the affirmations, you need to have a good emotion as well. So you can't be feeling guilty and saying I'm powerful, because it's not going to resonate. That makes sense, right? So as you say, I am powerful, or I am wonderful, I am worthy of all of the desires that I have. And you just say this in your mind. You don't have to say it aloud. In a meditative state, feel it and allow to soak yourself in that energy. And if you do this every day, and I say every day, and there is no excuses, and if you're too busy one day, then even 5 minutes of this, you can literally just do it in the middle of the day, then I guarantee you that you're gonna reach a point where nothing will take you off your game. It doesn't mean that all day will be perfect, but there is a huge difference between something crashing in front of you or something unexpected happening and you having a breakdown because of this, and then the same thing happening and you just being like, okay, cool, this sucks, this is difficult, and I'm gonna cry. However, inside, I know, like, it's a knowing. I know I'm going to be okay. I don't know how, I just know that I'm going to be okay. So it kind of goes hand in hand. Like I said, number one, let go of those behaviors and practice letting go and not behaving in this way, doing the opposite. And number two, every day, get in touch with that space of yourself and build that core, build that strength, so you can really just cultivate being that CEO and being in this space and operating from this space.
Oh, this is so good. And as you're explaining that like, everything about my journey, it makes total sense, because it's also during like my meditation practice. That's when I can truly feel and embody that essence, like like for me, what I resonate with is like a goddess essence. Instead of being queen, I kind of like embody that goddess essence, and like I just imagine breathing that in. And what are those qualities? Like I focus on compassion, patience, and like unconditional love. And when I can remember what that feels like throughout the day, when something would trigger me or throw me off, I just kind of ground myself back to that essence and remind myself like that's the truth of who I am. And it, like you said, it's like a constant practice. Like I still have days when I catch myself falling back to the Miko, like it's just people pleasing, but the more I do it, the more I just like feel like it's a part of me, and it's so powerful. And is this something, okay, so thank you for sharing these 2 steps with us, Alex. And I want to ask you, when you work with your clients and also for yourself, what are some of the most inspirational transformations that you start to see that your clients get in the results that they create in business or maybe even in relationship? How are they showing up differently when they do these 2 process every single day?
Absolutely. I mean, I have unending stories. I mean, I can tell you of a nutritionist who first came to me and she was just charging absolutely peanuts, like she was really charging low fees, and she could not, when I told her what she should be charging, well, not what she should be charging, what she could be charging if she wanted to, she was just like, it's just not going to happen, not going to happen, not going to happen. And we got her to the point now that she is just like, it's just rolls off her tongue, and people are paying this, and she's getting sales with I think she tripled actually what she charges. So, and this is literally from that one realization that when you are doing good in the world, you are supposed to receive the good. It's just like, you know, especially for entrepreneurs who are working in a service-based industry, you know, if you provide a world-class service, you're supposed to receive the great money for it. That's one of the transformation. Another example I can give you is a woman who is a working mother. When she came to me, she was already very successful, and she works from home and she kind of runs a consultancy. And back then she was kind of like doing it more of her own. She was just like, oh yeah, it's just me working in my living room. And bear in mind, when she came to me, she was already close to 6 figures. She was already about 100 grand a year business. But in her head, she was just like, it's just little me, you know, it's just what I do. And it's like, you know, she really didn't respect her own time. She was working herself to just absolute bone. Absolute bone. So she was, again, that high achiever who had the results, but underneath she was literally embarrassed to say, like, to her husband that, you know, hey, like, this is a serious thing. She still saw it as just a little thing that she was doing. And so through the empowerment and through really changing her character, and you know, some people call it life coaching, empowerment coaching, you know, I don't have the name for it, but really through the growth work and working on yourself, she's now gonna have like the biggest year. And even now during the times that's happening right now, she's having like the best month ever. And I think she's gonna go to, I think, about 350 grand this year. And she's got a team of people who are actually working for her, because now she's like, no, it's not just me working in my living room, in the little room, you know, on the sofa. I actually have a company and I have a business. And she just delegates and delegates and delegates. And then she's just got so much more. First of all, you know, she more than doubled her revenue, but that's the monetary value, right? But also she's got the quality of life, as in like, it's okay to take, you know, to have a date night. It's okay to have some time to myself. It's okay to get a massage, right? She started working out. She started working, you know, looking after her health. And I also have one lady who I just want to give you an example, and because she's a professional person, so she's not an entrepreneur. And again, she was already a high achiever. She was already at the director level. And again, this quiet, like, fear of like, can I really do this? And am I really good enough? Is everyone else better than me, etc., etc.? We walked through this, and when she was transitioning from one career to the other, she really wanted to go for like a higher level. She just wanted this like dream job that she's working internationally, you know, and she's just like this super duper person. And she kept applying. She couldn't get a job, and she was literally, and here is why it's so important to have a mentor who can hold you there and keep you there and not let you lower your expectations. Because when she kept trying to reach that level, she couldn't. She kept trying to reach that level, she couldn't. So she was starting to be like, maybe that kind of job and a career isn't possible for me, therefore, and I really need a career right now because I'm no longer with this job. Let me go and have something lower level. And I was like, no, this is possible for you. And this is what people don't understand, that it really is a matter of belief. Of that, like, it's gonna happen because I said it was gonna happen. And so we kept her there, and I kid you not, she got the best job. Like she's literally just like, listen, I can't even, like, this is more than I wanted. And now she's managing the UK team, and she's managing the Canadian team, and she's just like, she's got the travel, and she's got a great success, and she's working with people that she really looks up to. Why? Because we kept her there. We kept stretching her. And so I think that's the difficulty of selling the life coaching, right? Because how do you tell people, well, I'm going to stretch your mind more than you can so you can be a bigger person? But that's essentially, those are the type of results that women can have when they decide to go into this space.
Oh, this is so great. I just love how like all of the benefits that you share really shows that when we do this inner work, we can have both like amazing business and amazing quality of life. It's not like either or, which I feel like, you know, a lot of people are sacrificing one area for another because we didn't have that solid foundation. So this is so powerful. And Alex, I have really enjoyed this beautiful interview with you. And I trust that our audience understand this is a process, that like the real work really happens from this point forward. And if they would love to continue to learn from you and stay connected with you, how can they find you?
Absolutely. So I'm a little bit social media shy, you know, I'm not that great on Facebook, but you can find me on Instagram. Instagram is like the social media kind of home of choice. That's what I really love, actually. And you can just find me under Alex_Rudnicka, which is RUDNICKA. So you can connect with me there. You can send me a message. And also my website, which is my online home, is CEO Female Entrepreneur. So if you can just Google that, it will come up, and then we can continue the conversation.
Awesome. And I know that as a thank you for the listener for tuning in and saying yes to that greatness today, you have prepared them a nice free gift so they can further do this inner work with them. Would you mind sharing with us what that is?
I have, yes. So it's actually very much in line with what we covered today, and it's just going much deeper into it's called Wake Up Your Inner CEO, Badass CEO Entrepreneur, and it's a 3-part audio training where you really are being taken through the steps of discovering what it would look like for you. And then you also have a guided meditation when you can really go deep into this space and start embodying this. So everything that we covered today, you can actually go and implement and take it further and go deeper with that. And I believe you will put a link somewhere here magically, right? So they can access
Yes.
the training.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I'll include all of Alex's social media platforms, her website, and the link to get access to a free gift in the same email that this interview went out to. So just go back and also reply back to us, letting us know what was your biggest takeaway from this interview, and also like share inside the Facebook group and connect with us. And I trust that, you know, this has been powerful. It has been powerful for me, and I know it has been powerful for our listeners too. So again, Alex, I just want to say a big thank you and acknowledge you for the amazing work that you're doing and for sharing with us on this series today. Do you have any last words to share before we close this off?
Believe in yourself like your life depends on it, because it does. That's all I have to say. And thank you so much for having me. And I really hope that if you're listening to this, that it has been helpful to you. That's my wish.
And thank you everyone for joining us today. We only have a couple more days left on this series. Continue to follow through and stay committed to the end. So I'll see you guys tomorrow for day 22. Bye, Alex.